Right, here we are, trundling through Module 4, dealing with your typing problem. And this lesson now is going to be all about quantity versus quality. So what I really encourage as you're applying the things that I'm talking about in this course is to really allow yourself to be a beginner, to just noodle away in private and simply getting used to putting your bum in your chair and then staying there without distractions and typing out your words, essentially, getting your writing down. Because what matters, remember, is that you're not writing a book, you're writing a first draft, so it can be as messy as you want it to be. What really matters at this point is that you feel good at this stage, that you've actually sat down and done your writing. The quality of your work at the beginning, when you're learning to get your bum in your chair and do your writing, but also really anytime you're writing a first draft, even if you're writing your 50th first draft, the quality of your work doesn't matter in the beginning. And if you've read anything by Julia Cameron, she wrote The Artist's Way, and she wrote a great book called The Right to Write. So that's the right, R-I-G-H-T, to write, W-R-I-T-E. Yeah, she calls this laying track. And her point about laying track is just that you're putting down stuff behind you. You're getting your words written, and later you're going to worry about quality. And it's really important to remember that quality doesn't matter at the beginning, because you've got all the time in the world coming up when you can go back and fix it. And we're going to talk in one of the lessons in Module 5 about why, if you're editing while you're trying to write your first draft, if you're editing your words in your brain, like backing up and making adjustments, you're really doing yourself a disservice, and a disservice to the creative flow that happens. So like I say, yeah, we'll talk about that more in a future lesson, one of the lessons in Module 5. And so I just want to talk about how important it is to have this beginning mindset anytime we're writing a first draft, like I said, whether it's your 10th first draft or your first draft. And I love this video that Pete Docter gave. It was a presentation, I think, at a school. If you Google his name, and yes, that is how he spells his last name, and then plus the power and process of animated film, you'll find this video. It's not a TED Talk. He does have a TED Talk, but this isn't that. It's something different. And he talks about how at Pixar, they build into their process for creating an animated film time to make mistakes and to get it wrong. And I love that he summed that up in this quote about how important it is that they do that. And he talks here in the quote about if they don't allow themselves to do that, they're not going to do anything new. And so, and if you can imagine that they allow themselves the time and the space to go down wrong roads, to go down dead ends and to make mistakes and to have to backtrack and fix things. And they're dealing with millions and millions of dollars in the budgets for their animated films. So my hope is that you'll understand the power of allowing yourself to be a beginner when the risk for you is pretty low. You haven't got millions of dollars on the line when you're writing the first draft. So building in time, and I guess more for us writers, it would be kind of the allowance to make mistakes. Now, a lot of writers do talk about how once they've been writing a lot, they start to get to a place where they're writing really clean drafts, first drafts, which is great. And I mean, I think that's fantastic for them. And every writer has their own different process. None of us do it the same. So yeah, good for them if that works for them. One of the things that I really like about creativity is this idea of focusing on quantity rather than quality at the beginning, because it does allow new things to come up, which is exactly what Peak Doctor is referring to here. Sometimes the things that happen when we make mistakes or when we don't know where we're going with a plot line or with a character turn out to be the most interesting things about a book. So just wanted to mention that. And then something else I wanted to share is that very often in the beginning, we're really excited about what we've written, and we want to share that with others. And I'm just sort of tucking this tip in to this lesson, hoping this is the right place for it. But if you are brand new to writing, I really would encourage you actually not to share your work. When you're creating this ball of clay, it's really just for you. And I think what happens is sometimes we're excited about what we've done and we want to share it. What happens when you hand somebody something? You're kind of implicitly asking for their opinion about it, whether it's a piece of writing or a painting that you've done or whatever. And very rare is the person who can actually give helpful feedback. And you can look for those people professionally down the road. But it's very easy to get into a situation, and I've seen this happen to people with my own eyes, where they share their work with somebody, receive really critical negative feedback, where the person doesn't really understand what the writer is looking for. They're kind of really just looking for a pat on the head, and their creative impulse can get cut back, which is really sad. And so I just don't want that to happen to you. So the time for critique is never, ever when you've written your first draft or when you're writing it. I mean, I guess there are certain exceptions if you have a spouse who is exceptionally supportive, or a friend, and who maybe is also creative, and you can say to them, here's this thing I've written. I don't actually want any feedback. I just want to share it. That might be a safe way to do it. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that especially when we're new at this, we might want to protect, our writing is like a little bud coming up out of the ground, and it can really easily get squashed. And then the other thing I wanted to say too, we're going to go back to the marathon analogy now. So especially in the self-publishing community, people, as I've said before, can throw around a lot of information about the number of words they're writing in a day. And if we are struggling with our writing or are new at it, it can be really easy to compare ourselves to someone who's maybe been writing for 10 years. So in the marathon analogy, it would be like if you were running your first or second marathon and timing yourself to see if you're getting better, but then comparing yourself to someone who's been running for a decade. That isn't really a fair comparison. And so my suggestion would be, there's that expression about don't compare your outsides to someone else's insides. Or no, your insides to someone else's outsides. Sorry, said that backwards. But the point at this stage, as you're building the muscle to write so that you can boost your word count. So, what I'm encouraging you to do here is really about muscle building. It's not about competition at this point. So going faster, technically, quote unquote, isn't really the point at this stage. What we're trying to get you to do is develop a really strong habit about getting in your chair and then getting out of your own way, as we've talked about in these two lessons, so that you can get your words down. And we're going to talk more in a practical way about how to do that in a lesson in Module 5. So just hang tight for that. So essentially, the moral of this lesson is that your writing doesn't have to be good at this point. It just has to be. All you're doing is just building that muscle of getting to the page and getting something onto the page without restriction and criticism. So the next lesson is lesson 3, and it's more about your thinking, and then we'll move on after that into Module 5 and talk about practicalities. So I will see you in there.